Hello everyone and welcome to the 12th episode of the 9th series of the Temple of Surf, the podcast. Today with us from California, surfboard shaper Shea Somma. We discuss with him about shaping surfboards, surfers and much more. Hi Shea, welcome to the show. Where are you today?
I'm in San Luis Obispo, California.
Great, fantastic. Today we're going to talk about surfboards and shaping surfboards, of course, surfers, a lot of things. First question I ask everyone on this show, in your opinion, what is the most important thing in surfing?
I think to me, it's just keeping yourself, not taking it too seriously, having fun and keeping yourself in the ocean, like just in whatever capacity that is, whether it's body surfing, just going for a swim or surfing. To me, surfing is about that sense of being connected to being in the ocean and having fun and enjoying it and treating it like a playground.
Yeah, definitely, it's a playground, but it's a playground for a lot of people, you know, that
Yeah.
and then
Yeah, so whatever connects you to that sense of joy and enjoyment and fun is what keeps me, at least personally, really excited about surfing.
okay. And let's before starting to talk about you as a shaper, let's talk to you as let's talk about you as a surfer, but on the angle of surfboards, right? So what are you surfing today yourself? What you like to surf? And going back to the your first surfboard, if you remember your first proper surfboard. So I don't know which one you want to take first, but I let you deal with the question the way you like.
So my first proper surfboard was a 9.0 2+1 Jack's surfboard from Jack's Surfboards in Huntington Beach.
Okay.
With a airbrush of an orca on the bottom. It was hilarious. It was a giant airbrush with a pink background and a big orca jumping out of the water. And I thought that was the coolest thing ever. It was a 2+1 fin setup, but I always rode it as a single fin. And I learned to surf primarily at Doheny Beach in Dana Point. Boneyards is the little baby wave over there that a lot of people learn at in Orange County. And yeah, I still have it. Actually, it's at my mom's house. It's been repaired like a million times. It's lumpy and ugly and delaminating, but I wanted to, we hang on to it if anyone's learning or that kind of thing. It's just a total beater, but it's still going. It's still got some life in it. And then
flavor of the vintage of the experience of all these years, right?
yeah, exactly. It's like it just gets better and better. It's heavier and heavier, and if you throw it right into the rocks, it does not matter. It's fine. It'll be okay. We'll just throw some more salt res on it, and we're good to go. And then as far as what I'm currently surfing, I think like that's to kind of answer that question. It's what got me into shaping in the first place. Is I kind of like to ride a little bit everything. So I have like a really wide tail, wide nose log at one end of the spectrum. I call it my ham and cheese model. Really parallel, straight railed, nose riding oriented, really oriented towards small waves. And then at the other end of the spectrum, I've got like a more high performance pintail twinser kind of fish in the front end and pintail on the back end for better, heavier surf. That's more performance oriented. And then I've got, Mini Simmons style board that I ride a lot called the Mini Super. That's kind of a good daily driver around here in Central California where it gets through fat sections pretty well, but then when it stands up, it just flies. Twin eggs, and in the mid-length category, like yesterday I was riding a 7.7 quad that I've actually just been riding as a twin lately. So kind of a little bit of everything. I tend to have in everything just a little bit of I like a sampler platter. I like a one of these, and then the next day I'll go for one of those, and it just kind of depends on the day.
You're experimenting all your surfboards and perfectioning yourself, right? You're the first test, right?
Totally. Yeah. I'm definitely like, yeah, the first one to give a new design a spin and see what I think. And then I try and pass them off to friends who are better surfers than I am and see what they think. And kind of surfboards tend to have a life of their own. They tend to travel a little bit once you start handing them off. And it's interesting to see what people think. And then they come back to you with, with a little feedback and you make another one and it just keeps going.
What was the most interesting or challenging feedback that you received from one of your surfers' friend about your boards?
Oh man, it's challenging when you hear that a board doesn't go right. But I'd say that that's a good question. Yeah, I don't. I've definitely heard both ends of it, where it's either like, oh my god, I love this thing, or it just didn't work for me. Honestly, it's hard to get good articulate feedback of identifying what element of design is making a board go well or not from somebody. Normally the type of feedback you get is either it didn't work for me or it did work for me, and then it's up to me to decide what elements were factoring into that. And so for instance, I've for some of my friends who are better surfers who have made boards of the same model but different small changes model to model. What's useful to me is hearing, as I've made those changes, how they like that board. And I know as the shaper, oh, for instance, on the first one that they tried, the rail shape was more foiled. And the second one, the only thing I changed was that I put more foam in the rails and gave it a more full round shape as opposed to the one previous, right? That's an actual example. And they liked the second one better. So it's like, okay, now I know how I shape the rails is the thing that actually changed board to board. Therefore, I should shape it that way moving forward. But yeah, it's truthfully, it's very difficult to get people who are more articulate than it either worked or it didn't. But it's also really helpful for me. What I really enjoy doing is going surfing with those friends and watching them surf, or hopefully getting photo or video more than photo. Photos can lie, but video tells more of the whole story. And looking at that, I feel like I have the ability to understand, okay, what elements I put into that board and why they're surfing, how they're surfing on it a little bit more.
Yeah. Looking at the pictures, we are all top pro surfers, right?
Yeah.
Many times during the interview, I made the comment that basically, if you look at Instagram, there is never like a picture of a bad wave or a bad, like, yeah, bad wave or bad surfing. It's always like
Everybody's ripping and everybody's scoring all the time.
exactly. So that's crazy, yeah. But actually, every surfboard, I would say, is a very personal the way a surfer surfs it. And
100%. Yeah.
I remember one fun comment that Craig Hollingsworth, Craig Hollingsworth of like in Bolt, Ans and whatnot, told me that he received a comment from one of his clients that said like, the fin configuration of my surfboard is totally wrong. I think you did a mistake, Craig. And then he said like, very weird. Let me look into it. And then he looked into it and he saw that the fin configuration was like was wrong. But then he asked to the surfer, but how does the surfboard surfs? And it's the best one I ever had. Well, then
That's funny.
With the knit.
Yeah, that's right. You never know. And like I said, I was like, just yesterday, the board I was surfing is a 7.7. I designed it as a quad and I wasn't loving it as a quad. And I just put a couple of paddle keel style fins, the Wayne Rich Nightmare keel. I don't know if you've seen those fins. They're really swept back.
Yeah.
Short base, big tip, swept way back. I put those in it and the thing came alive in a way that it hadn't yet before as a quad. So to me, it's always worth just tinkering around and tinkering around. And sometimes you're surprised by what works for you and what doesn't. And then kind of like you're saying how surfboards are so personal, it's like I can ride a board and absolutely love it and pass it off to a friend and it doesn't work for them at all, and vice versa. They might love something that I'll try and ride and it won't work for me whatsoever. But I think that's part of the attraction to shaping for me, is that you're kind of constantly evolving and working on these things and trying to tailor it to an individual person who their body might be very different than your body, or they might surf and put their weight differently than you would surf, very front-footed versus very back-footed. So there's infinite variables, and you're always trying to improve things constantly, and tailor them to an individual, which is, it's a endless project, which is fun.
It is. Actually, this one is quite of a philosophical question. I don't know. I don't want to be boring at the 9 o'clock in the morning.
I was a philosophy major in college.
Okay,
so it's okay.
Maybe you can answer to this. Do you think in the surfboard industry of today, or industry of today, it's more about improvement or innovation?
That's interesting. I think it's not either or. I think it's both. And innovation is always seeking to improve, right? Like that's the reason for innovation. I think that today's industry, as far as I know it seems to be divided into like really big producers, which are the brands that most people know, the Channel Islands, Firewire, Lost, etc. All those big companies, and then a lot of small producers like myself that are more regional. And I think what's interesting about the industry is that everyone seems to be on their own trip at the small level. Especially, it seems like individual people get obsessed with certain elements of design and really chase those down, or seeking to work with a particular material type and like really focusing on that. The larger scale manufacturers still seem mostly focused, from my point of view, I'm not part of that industry at all, but it seems that most of those bigger brands are focused mostly on high performance shortboards, which is, I guess it feels, from my point of view, a little less innovative and more just performance oriented and improving the athleticism of their athletes, letting them just perform at that really high kind of almost gymnastic level. But yeah, I think it's both things, and it's really idiosyncratic and individual, shaper to shaper, what each person is trying to achieve.
Yeah, in fact, I couldn't give an answer myself to the question, because when we think about, I don't know, the foam, and we think about the shaping or fins, maybe on the fins, maybe there is still a way to go. I don't know, with the way that the technology of the fin maybe can be very improved, but otherwise it looks like a kind of a static industry that rotates around the same old things, foam and what you can get out of it, and the new materials. We can go from the carbon Kelly Slater new project, or eco compatible or materials. Then the lack of an adoption from the industry that will allow the cost to go down. And
yes,
I
found that to be the case. For instance, I've really enjoyed shaping varial foam when I have had the opportunity to do so. It's a really interesting material. It shapes really nicely and it has great performance attributes to it. It's long lasting, but it's almost triple the cost of a normal blank. And so that cost prohibitive nature of it, it's hard to, for most custom orders, people are a little bit more cost conscious, and it's hard to sell someone on a product that they haven't had the opportunity to sample themselves and understand what the performance benefits are, especially if they're not surfing at an incredibly high level and can really absorb what the difference is in a big way versus a traditional constructed board. So for me, most of my practice has been design focused and just working with traditional materials because that's essentially what most of my customers will buy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd love the opportunity to work with more diverse materials, but the increased cost of those makes it difficult for me to do that at a business level. I've made myself several different types of constructions of boards just to try, but to that versus selling is very different.
And regarding the short board that are getting shorter and shorter, faster and faster, maybe I don't know if maybe I do a conceptual mistake in saying that, but what I think is that as the sport is evolving into something, at least on the perception, something closer to the X Games, of snowboard, where there is a lot of performance, a lot of jumps, flips, whatnot,
Mhm.
also
Wave gymnastics. They're doing wave gymnastics.
yeah, it's pushed also by the increase of of the many surf pools that are growing all around the world, right? Where the waves
Yeah.
are perfect. There is no more like the ocean kind of factor, and
Mm.
knowing exactly where the wave goes, let's say second by second almost, you can decide to do some aerial of, or I don't know, kind of an acrobat kind of job, rather than. So
Totally.
if that is pushed quite a lot by the television, by the media, then of course the surfers will need something super hyper performing that matches the need in a certain way of what the people want to see. That is not the reality of what the general surfer do in the ocean every day, right? They don't
Totally.
perform.
Yeah, I think that'll be interesting to see as wave pools become more dominant, what designs become specific to the wave pool, like kind of like a wakeboard, right? Or a wake surf board. I think that because you're not trying to paddle through a lineup where there's current and where there's all kinds of factors at play that go into whether or not you're even catching waves. Once that gets eliminated, then you can focus purely on how the board performs on that wave itself. And I think that will, like you're saying, drive the length of the board down and really orient those boards towards that more acrobatic style of surfing. And I think at some point it'll be interesting to see if there are very like wave pool specific designs out there. I think that's kind of inevitable, and that's where that is probably going to head. But like you're saying as well, it's so different than the reality of most day-to-day surfers. I mean, like I answered the first question, like what's the most important thing in surfing? I think it's just being in the ocean and learning to have fun in the ocean and enjoy it. That's what my surfing life is. I've never been in a wave pool. Of course, it'd be interesting to give it a spin and see what it's all about. But I live in San Luis Obispo. Kelly's pool is like 2 hours inland, but it's a little pricey, and all the other ones are quite a bit of distance away. So it's not really my reality. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how that all develops.
Yeah, exactly. Because again, yes, it will be another kind of surfing maybe, and yeah, and then there will be maybe traditional surfing, ocean surfing, pool surfing, and then maybe foiling and all the other things that they are in hype today, let's say.
Yeah, it reminds me almost of like the half pipe or the park versus free riding and snowboarding. Like there's just two totally different styles there.
Exactly. And then there is the classic snowboarding that, you can even go for a button, but vintage surfboard, sorry, snowboard, classic, and,
The fishtail, and yeah.
those were nice, by the way. My God, I really like them. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, the old school guy. Yeah. So, let's say, transitioning between what is the most important thing in surfing and what is the most important thing in shaping, what would you answer?
Oh man, in shaping, I would just say writing as diverse of craft as possible, and also don't stop trying to change it up. Like even if you think you've like really nailed a particular shape, keep changing the fins up and see how different fin sets go, and have a friend ride it, see how they surf on it. I think there's always room for, especially hand shaping. It's like that's the fun of it, is that you get to continually work on your craft and hopefully keep evolving it and bettering it. And so taking the opportunities to surf to really try different things, and don't be afraid to ride other people's boards. I love riding other craft too. I think there's a lot of great shapers out there, and I'm not going to claim that my boards are just the absolute end all be all, right? Like I always want to know more information and try different things, and I feel like it really informs my shapes when I get to ride a diverse array of boards.
Okay, thank you. And I was thinking something during before you were saying, I have one of my boards is called ham and cheese.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, right. And during one of I don't remember who told me that, but during one of the interview, we were discussing about giving a name of a model, let's say, to a surfboard in end shaping, and
Yeah.
we're discussing about the fact that can be kind of contradicting itself, because if it's end shaping means that you're doing something like kind of very specific, while the other side you have a model that is a reference for like a shape or like, I don't know, tail or whatnot. And how do you see this? How do you leave this point? Do you agree with whoever says that if you do traditional end shaping, you should not give a name of models to your surfboard, or if for you it's fine, it's not that important at the end?
Yeah, I think like the model name is just a way of communicating to people what the general idea of the shape is. But you're right, a hand shape, they're always going to vary, even in really slight degrees, one to the next, because it's a handmade object. So you're not going to replicate things exactly precisely like a computer would. But to me, that's the beauty and the fun of hand shaping, right? But it's helpful. People, customers want to say, I want this, right? Like, and if you're saying like, it's hard to communicate what each board does without that model name. So I think it's more of a way of trying to connect with your customer. But to me, my model names, like I try and just communicate kind of what the board is all about. So the ham and cheese, for instance, it's a nose rider. There's that famous line in Emma Summer where Bruce Brown says he was up on the nose so long he could have eaten a ham and cheese sandwich, right? That's how long he was on the nose. So that was where that name came from. Or like I have another board, it's the cochon. It's a pig. So cochon is pig in French, right? And it's just a wide point behind center, traditional style, soft rail, tail kicked longboard, which is a pig. So I just, instead of just calling it the pig, I called it the cochon because French is fun, right? So so I try and just get the vibe of the thing. Um, but yeah, but you're right. Like hand shapes, that is the nature of them, is that they do vary one to the other. And my favorite thing to do is to do customs for individual people, and then you really try and tailor it to that individual person. And that's exciting, because then when I'm working on something, it's not just gonna be on a rack somewhere and who knows who's gonna get on it eventually. It's like I have Tom in mind, or Sally, or whoever. But I can actually focus on that individual person and try and really make their board. And that to me is really gratifying and fun.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Was there a meeting with a surfer that was particularly meaningful for you as a person? I'm sure you met a lot of them, some your clients.
Yeah.
Coach.
Oh man. Yeah, I've had a lot of them. Gosh, I guess the first one that comes to mind, I did talk about this on another podcast, but I it bears repeating, is that I got to meet Mark Andrini when I was really early in my shaping career. Not even career, I'd shaped like maybe 10 boards at that point, and I saw him at the beach. And I wasn't even going to say anything because I recognized him and I have always really admired his shapes. But when he saw me waxing up a longboard I had shaped and glassed, and I made the fin for it and everything, he came over and he said, "Hey, did you shape that board?" And I said, "Yeah, I did." And he's asked if I glassed it, and I did. And then he immediately asked if he could ride it, which was kind of intimidating, right? It's Mark Andrini. I had always admired his shapes, and I was like, "Oh, okay, I guess," you know. So we ended up, I rode a 10-1 glider that he had, and he rode this 9-6 round pin pig style longboard that I had shaped. Really early, really rough shape, but he just couldn't have been cooler or kinder. He told me it trimmed really good in the soup, and that's how I knew it was a good longboard. And I was so over the moon about that. And yeah, it really was encouraging to me at a really early moment in making surfboards, and it really kind of fueled the fire for me to continue on that path in a way that I think I think I still would have been making boards, but it made me feel like, oh, I actually made a good board, and that was really it meant a lot to me. It really did, and it's a really treasured memory for me.
It's an encouragement, like
Yes,
actually it happens more often than we could think, because it's not the first time that I hear that particular meeting at the beginning of a career as a surfer or as a shaper really like push the person to first to dedicate themselves, whether he's a professional surfer or a shaper or whatnot, and to succeed, and it actually becomes like an important actually is part, I guess, if we go back to the surf culture, sorry, to pass the stock, right, to one person
definitely. Yeah,
to another. And I guess that was a moment of stock, right, because you
big
were,
time.
wow.
Yeah.
Doesn't happen every day. We
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I thought that was extremely generous of him because clearly I was, it was a backyard board. The thing was pretty rough, and it was really generous of him to share that with me. And I think he knew probably exactly what he was doing, but but yeah, it meant a lot to me for sure.
And so you are glassing also your surfboards. You don't outsource that. You do it yourself.
I do outsource it for customer boards now. I got
Okay.
busy enough shaping that I couldn't keep up with. I'm a very slow glasser. I'm a slow shaper too, to be honest. So doing both was too much. I've worked with Israel Menezes for over a decade now. He was doing dings in the shop that I was glassing out of over a decade ago. And so he's progressed into a really amazing glasser. And so he's the primary glasser I work with. His company is called Sticks and Logs Glassing here in San Luis Obispo. And then I also work with another glasser in Morro Bay, Corey Richmond Fiberglassing in Morro Bay. But I still glass my personal boards, and sometimes I'll do color work on customer boards. I love doing color laminations, and I like doing other types of color work, whether they're panels or dyeing cloth and doing that kind of thing. But now, especially for color work, Israel's work is so much cleaner than mine that it's just wouldn't make sense for me to do it. He's so much better than I am, and it's a good partnership. We've worked together a long time now.
Okay, okay. And you said yourself that you are a very slow surfboard shaper. I
Yeah.
guess because it takes time. But I'm curious, if somebody wants to take to make an order with you for a custom board, how long does it take before you receive it?
Typically it's about 8 weeks, so not crazy slow, but yeah, it is a little bit of a wait there for sure.
Okay, no, it's not something like critical, because in the COVID time, a surfboard.
That was different. Yeah, things have, I'm sure you're aware, after COVID, things definitely dipped down quite a bit. For me personally, yeah, it dipped down quite a bit, and then now it feels like it's getting busier again, thankfully. So yeah, those wait times are always pretty variable. During COVID, I think it was closer to like 5 or 6 months, but never. I mean, I guess it's all relative. I wouldn't say they're crazy long wait times for my boards, though.
Yeah, okay, it's not crazy long. That's important, And it's
Yeah.
interesting, like how in COVID nobody was allowed to surf, but everybody was dreaming to buy surfboards. And then,
Yeah, I mean, thankfully for us here in, Central Coast, like we never had a surfing restrictions. That was really nice. I think in Europe it was different, right? And
yeah,
a lot of other places in the world. So I'm thankful that during that time, because yeah, it was, with everything else being shut down, it was just a hard time for everybody, and we were very lucky to be able to continue surfing during that time.
is there a project, secret project that you're working on today, or is it business as usual for you?
Today?
Not today, in these days, let's say.
Yeah. I have I was invited to participate in an event in the summer that's a fun event. At the Slow Museum of Art, there's a big art exhibition of surfing coming up.
Okay.
So I'm making some things that are some art pieces
Okay.
that I'm excited about. Yeah,
Okay.
but that's not strictly just surfboards for surfing.
Because you like to create, to paint, or to do artwork on the boards, or in general. Yeah.
I love any kind of design work. Actually, I find just that initial moment of creating a thing to be really addicting and fun, and really engaging to my mind. And so yeah, I enjoy painting, I enjoy dyeing cloth, I enjoy making surfboards, of course. I also design landscapes, and I built the little house that we're living in now. So that was a whole big project several years ago. Architecture is super interesting to me as well. So yeah, like I got the opportunity to participate in this show that's coming up, and was very honored to be invited to make something for it. And so I generally take any of those types of opportunities that come my way, because
Okay.
it's fun. Yeah.
It happens often now that surfboard shapers are invited by universities to teach the art of shaping surfboards. No, so maybe one day you will be a professor in the University of California teaching how to shape.
Yeah, we'll see. Maybe.
It never stops. Yeah, it's incredible how much like from crafting something, opens mind of the people, but opens people's mind and boundaries, and so it's interesting. Okay,
I think they're all related. Like if you're creating one thing, that same mindset and that same process can relate to creating any other thing. If you keep your mind open, it's all a connected web.
yeah, exactly. It is a connected web. I totally agree with you. What
Yeah.
was the craziest request you receive in shaping a surfboard? So somebody ask you something crazy or no?
Yeah, I have a customer who, the first one that comes to mind is this customer from Malibu, who he's on his sixth version of the same surfboard. So it's the Mini Super, and he keeps evolving them one to the next to be slightly different than the one before. And the latest iteration of that board was a completely asymmetrical variation with a twinser on the heel side and a twin on the toe side, and Venturi concaves, and a crazy asymmetrical template that he and I kind of collaborated on the template. So it looks to me like a big toe,
Mhm.
like your foot. But that's probably one of the weirder boards that I've created, especially recently.
I guess he's looking for the perfect surfboard, like little variation until he finds the best for him. Well, it's good.
He
He's
claims this one is the best one yet. So actually, I'm going to use that same template. The next time I make myself a mini super, I'm going to try and make one very similar to his latest one.
that's cool. That's cool. So we're gonna finish our interview with a short Q&A session. So as you know, you already listened to some episodes. 6 questions common to everyone on the show. So please answer the first thing that comes up to your mind. So the best surfboard that you ever ridden.
Oh, right. So like I had mentioned before, I like to ride a little bit of everything, so it's hard for me to pin it down. But one story that comes to mind is I was camping at a surf spot, a right-hand point break, many years ago, and the waves were really good, 2 foot maybe or so, really good for longboarding. And I was just me and one other camper out there longboarding in the
Okay.
afternoon. He wanted to try the board that I had been riding, so we switched boards and I got to ride his, I want to say it was a 9.8 Gary McNabb Nectar surfboards. And it was a blunt nose, blunt tail log. And it was honestly the most instant, perfect connection with a surfboard I've ever had. Like, I still remember that session perfectly to this day. I had the best nose rides I've ever had.
Wow.
Um, it was just instant, easy to ride, beautifully performing longboard, and I still think about that board a lot.
I can see that. I can see that. Favorite
uh,
shaper of all time.
Another one that's really tough to answer. I'd say maybe oh gosh, there's so many great shapers. Maybe just for pure influence, I'd say George Greenough. He's incredibly inventive, and I feel like the DNA that he kind of put into his boards can be found in most modern designs now. I think we're still living in Greenough's world as far as design goes, so maybe I got to give it to him.
Okay, good. That's it. Personal question. Your favorite song or kind of music?
That's another impossible one to answer. There's so many. Yeah, as far as music goes, I go genre to genre constantly. When I was in high school, I really loved Pavement, the album Crooked Rain, or Smashing Pumpkins, Siamese Dream. Then hip hop, I'd listen to a lot of The Roots, like Things Fall Apart was a great album, or Reflection Eternal, Train of Thought was a great album that I'll still listen to this day. Kid A by Radiohead. Now, for the last couple years, I've been listening to a lot of Jeff Parker. He had an album called Sweet for Max Brown that I've listened to a ton. But it's just kind of all over the place. Hiatus Coyote is a great band that I listen to a ton of. Yeah, it's everything really. For hard rock, maybe Ovlov, if you've heard of Ovlov. That's they have a couple great albums. But yeah, it just depends day to day.
Okay.
Oh, Do Make Say Think. I gotta put it. Do Make Say Think is another great band that several of their albums. And Yet is one of my favorite albums by them. But yeah, it just depends each day.
Right.
Grant Green, sorry. Grant Green, Idle Moments by Grant Green is a pretty perfect album as well. But yeah, I could keep going. I was also a college radio DJ at one point. So
Okay. So I guess, there is like, first of all, there is like a big spectrum of kind of songs and genre or whatnot. And definitely,
yes,
that you are a DJ that actually complicate things, right?
it does. It just makes it impossible. It's like every time I keep naming a band, I think of 3 more. So
No. Anyway, I think we said enough. I think people can go and on the libraries of Spotify or whatnot and
yes.
discover a few things, myself as well. favorite surf spot if it's not a secret?
Yeah, I'll just say a right hand sand bottom point break.
Okay.
And pretty much there's a few of them that could all rank as my favorite depending on the day. But if it's warm water and it's a sand bottom right hand point and there's not a crowd, that's my favorite surf spot by far. Yeah.
Got it.
So,
Favorite surfer of all time?
I want to say two, if that's okay.
Please do.
For longboarder, I'll say JJ Wessels.
Okay.
I love to watch him. His nose riding is just incredibly technical and beautiful, but his style is just completely his own and is really impressive. And then for shortboarding, Dane Reynolds, I'll say, just pure aggression and total spontaneity is totally inspiring. So
good choices. And the last question is a bit unusual. I'd like to know your best relationship advice, whether it can be romantic, friendship, whatever you like.
I'll just say try to be as honest and communicative as you can. And, communicate with love.
It works, I guess, is very important, yeah? Already communicate by itself is already a great thing, and not that easy to do, No,
it's not. Yeah, but it's even when it's hard, try and communicate your truth and try and do it in a way that's coming from a loving place.
Yeah. Also, in the lineup, communicate. I'm getting this wave.
Yeah. Get a good whistle.
Yeah. Exactly. Cool. Thank you so much for being on the show with me today. I look forward to talk to you very, very soon.
Could I also mention I'm going to be in France shaping soon with fantastic, well, if not Fantastic Acid, but Atlantic Vibrations. Tristan.
You're going to France?
Yeah, so I'll be in France in mid-May shaping some boards there. And so I'm excited for that trip and currently taking orders. So I just wanted to give that a little bit of a plug while I'm on here. And then after that, I'll be in New York City shaping with King's Glassing and still taking orders, well, till the end of this week. So I don't know when the podcast will come out, but
2 weeks. So in 2 weeks' time, the podcast will be, so we will be maybe late for New York, but in time for the European friends. So
that's right. Yes.
A nice trip to Anglais. Fantastic with Tristan and Mouse and Fantastic Acid. So it's a fantastic place. So I'm it's a great guy. So I'm happy for you and looking forward.
Thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to it. And if anyone's interested, please reach out.
Of course. Cool. Ciao. See you soon. Hi, it's me again. I hope you enjoyed our today's episode. If you want to know more about us, please follow www.thetempleofsurf.com and all our social media. Mahalo!